In this video, I'm going to talk to you about something that I get asked a lot. Is voice feminization therapy permanent? Will I always feel like I have to be putting on a voice? My heart always sinks slightly when I get that question because it is the common belief out there. It feels like a losing battle to put the other side. I don't blame people for feeling that or for getting asked that question a lot myself, because actually, it's not the easiest thing to do. And when people have just tried to modify their voice themselves, that's rarely enough. Some people are very lucky and can do it naturally without much effort, but that's usually the minority. Other people have tried therapy, but not perhaps had the outcome that they were hoping. Often it's that the therapy wasn't long enough, wasn't specialist enough, or the person had such overwhelming doubts, they'd self-sabotage, stopped the therapy, or just had the belief that this wouldn't work. Now, I work with people who have the belief that it won't work all the time. And actually, it's fine to have that belief at the beginning. But often when they start and see little things happening, the change happens easier and quicker than they thought. The belief goes up or allows them to carry on. You can still hold some doubt, but just allow yourself to carry on. It's having to go through that stage and getting to the end that gets you to the stage where the voice habituates. For something to become permanent, it has to habituate. It has to go from being something you practice, that's something quite new, that isn't the starting voice. It goes through a process of change and then it becomes a different voice. So it habituates or it generalizes. Therapists often say we generalized it into the speaking voice, the everyday spontaneous speaking voice. That level is always the last level. And because people don't get the experience of the last level until they go through a few sessions, it can be very off-putting for some people who, especially if you're feeling impatient. But mostly it's because people have doubts and they feel they can't do it. People often feel that they'll be putting on a voice for the whole of their lives. And actually, that would mean that the therapy didn't work. Having to put on a voice, almost act a voice, is not the goal of therapy. It would be more successful if there was only one voice at the end and the older voice doesn't manifest. And some people say, I can't even do my old voice. People sometimes can't remember their voice. And often when I make the first recording and then compare it to a later recording, sometimes I'm still really shocked by how much it's changed. That's why we always try and get recordings for that feedback. But also the client is often very shocked at how much it's changed. They sometimes think they weren't doing very well and then realize how far they've come. And that's often enough of an incentive to just carry on, to get it to the point where it's habituated securely into the everyday voice. And that when they go to speak, the newer voice comes out and that is the voice. It's no longer the newer voice, it is the voice. That can happen to so many people and for so many people. And of course, there's always exceptions, but it's not usually because it wasn't possible. It's more because people didn't think it was possible, didn't get the right treatment, or didn't do it long enough. To go back to the issue of putting on a voice, it will feel like that for many people. And often people will say to me, oh, I try to do it outside, but it feels like I'm putting on a voice. So it does take very small steps of practicing that in small ways to get a little bit used to it yourself. And the more you try it a little bit outside, the more you realize that people don't react in the way you thought. Often reactions are positive or nothing to worry about. But it's almost like having to have the experience that it will go okay and just almost feeling the fear and do it anyway. The people who've said they had the doubts but they just had a go tended to accelerate the progress much quicker. But often that's hard for people. So we have to take people through it as in the way that they can manage and make suggestions for them to try and grow the spontaneous voice according to what's going on for them and how anxious they feel. Putting on a voice, it doesn't seem to me to be an authentic way of voicing. It would be quite stressful to constantly put on a voice. Some people are good at impersonations or copying voices, and I can do some of those types of impressions. But I wouldn't want to do it every day. I wouldn't want that to be my voice. However good you can do an impression, really, that's not really your voice. I call it voice modification because you're modifying a voice that starts off a certain way and modifying it into a different voice. It's still going through that person's vocal tract, but it's sounding different. And once the ear hears that enough times, the ear will tend to help you have that voice as your permanent voice once it's been practiced enough. If the voice doesn't change adequately, despite the person's best efforts and the therapist's best efforts, sometimes it's just that it is particularly difficult for that person and they might want to think of other techniques, perhaps surgical assistance to help with the pitch. There is nothing, no type of therapy or no type of intervention that can work for every single person who tries it. Just like some people never learn to drive the car, however many instructors they have and however many lessons they have. But if you think about that's much rarer than the amount of people who do learn to drive the car just because they did have all the lessons and instructors that helped them to get there in the end. So perseverance sometimes is needed for the people who find it harder, but permanently achieving a feminized voice is the goal most people have, and it's by far the goal I see more people achieve. If you like this video, please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel.